I used to tell my hairdresser, just a trim for 11 years straight, because I was terrified of what a real change might do to my face. Turns out that fear was costing me more than any bad haircut ever could. Today I'm walking you through 5 haircuts that genuinely take years off a woman's face after 50. Not trendy cuts, not anything that needs a styling team, just shapes that work with what gravity and time have actually done to your face. I researched the best style and beauty fixes for women over 50, so you get real results without the guesswork. If you haven't already, hit subscribe. I cover this every single week. Part 1, the long layered lob. Here's something most women don't realize until someone tells them straight out. Hair that hangs flat and one length past your shoulders is doing the exact opposite of what you think it's doing. It's not making you look younger or more put together. It's pulling your whole face down with it. Gravity is already working against you a little at this age, and waist length, blunt-ended hair just hands gravity another tool to use. I see this constantly, and I felt it myself for years. You keep your hair long because it feels like the safe, age-defying choice, like cutting it short means giving something up. But long flat hair past 50 usually adds visual weight exactly where you don't want it, right along the jaw and chin, exaggerating the very things you're trying to soften. The fix is the long layered lob, somewhere between chin and collarbone, with face-framing layers that start right around the cheekbone. This length does something a full long cut can't. It clears the jawline instead of clinging to it, and the layers create movement that catches light instead of sitting heavy and dull. Ask your stylist for layers cut with a razor or point cutting technique rather than blunt shears, because razored ends move softly around the face instead of forming a stiff curtain. What changes is immediate. The first time you see it in the mirror, your eyes go up. People look at your eyes and your cheekbones first instead of registering long hair as the whole impression. Friends will tell you that you look rested, even if you didn't sleep any better that week. That's the layers doing quiet, structural work nobody can quite name. Ask for layers that start at the cheekbone, not the chin. That 1 inch of placement is the difference between a cut that lifts your face and one that just shortens your hair. Have your stylist check the layering while your head is tilted forward and again upright, because layers that look right looking down can sit completely wrong once you straighten up. The swap here is simple to picture. Before, hair hanging flat past the shoulders in one length, no movement, dragging everything downward. After, a chin to collarbone lob with face-framing layers that lift and soften everything above the jaw. Now the lob solves the length problem. But there's a second cut that solves a problem the lob can't touch on its own. And it has to do with what's happening at your part line that you've probably never thought about. Part 2, the soft curtain fringe. Most women over 50 avoid bangs entirely because they're convinced bangs are a young woman's thing. Something that stops working once your forehead starts showing lines. That's backwards. A soft curtain fringe doesn't hide your forehead at all. It's the single fastest way to visually lift your eyes and soften the space between your eyebrows, which is usually the first area that starts looking heavier with age. I recognize the hesitation because I had it myself. Bangs feel like commitment, and a bad fringe is genuinely hard to undo gracefully while it grows out. That fear keeps a lot of women stuck with a center part that, frankly, ages harder than almost any other styling choice once your hairline starts to recede even slightly. The fix is a soft parted curtain fringe, long enough to sweep to either side of your face rather than sitting heavy across your brow. This isn't the blunt, eyebrow skimming bang from decades ago. It's longer, lighter, and it parts naturally down the middle so it frames rather than covers. Ask your stylist to cut it long enough to tuck behind your ears on a humid day, because that length gives you the flexibility to wear it open or swept back depending on the day. The reason it works is about light and proportion, not coverage. A curtain fringe breaks up a wide, flat expanse of forehead into smaller, softer shapes, and it draws the eye straight to your eyes instead of up to your hairline. The first time my own stylist convinced me to try it, 3 separate people that week told me I looked like I'd had work done. I hadn't. I'd had 4 inches of hair cut at an angle. Have your stylist cut the fringe dry, not wet, since hair often springs up shorter than expected once it dries, especially with any natural wave. And ask for it cut in layers rather than one straight line, so it can be brushed to the side easily on days you don't want bangs at all. Picture the swap plainly. Before, A hard center part with the full forehead exposed and nothing softening the space between the brows. After, a long swept curtain fringe that breaks up the forehead and pulls the eye straight to the eyes. If you thought the fringe was the boldest swap on this list, wait until you hear what's happening at the back of your head that almost nobody checks in the mirror. Part 3. The textured pixie with length on top. Here's the part that surprises people most. A pixie cut, done correctly, can actually make hair look thicker than it did at twice the length. That sounds backwards, but thinning hair photographs worse the longer it gets, because length pulls weight downward and exposes the scalp through strands that no longer have the density to cover it. A lot of women see thinning hair and panic by volumizing products, when the actual problem is the length itself working against the hair you have left. I had a friend who spent 2 years on serums and sprays before anyone told her the simplest fix was sitting in the chair the whole time. The fix is a textured pixie with length left on top, cropped close at the sides and back, but kept longer through the crown so you can still style it with some movement. This isn't a buzzed, uniform pixie. The short sides remove the weight that was dragging everything flat, and the longer top gives you somewhere to create volume and shape using just your fingers and a little texturizing product. Ask your stylist to point cut the top layers so the ends look feathered rather than blunt, since blunt ends on short hair can look severe rather than soft. What this does structurally is redirect attention upward, toward your cheekbones and eyes, the same way the lob does, but it goes further because there's no length anywhere to weigh the silhouette down. Short hair with the right texture reads as deliberate and chic rather than as what's left. Women who make this switch often tell me the compliments shift from, "Your hair looks nice today," to "You look amazing," which is a different kind of comment entirely. Ask specifically for a disconnected pixie if you want more drama, where the sides are noticeably shorter than the top, or a blended pixie if you want something softer and easier to grow out later. Either version solves the same problem. The swap plainly stated: before, shoulder-length thinning hair with visible scalp and no shape. After, a short textured pixie with volume concentrated at the crown, and nothing left to drag the silhouette down. Now, the pixie solves thinning hair beautifully, but it's not the right answer for everyone, and the next cut on this list is specifically for the women who've been told short hair just won't work on them. Part 4. The shoulder-grazing shag. I want to tell you something a colorist told me years ago that I never forgot. She said most women over 50 have hair that's stuck, meaning it hasn't changed shape in a decade even though the face underneath it has changed enormously. The shag exists specifically to break that stuck feeling without forcing you into anything drastically short. If you've worn the same general shape since your 30s or 40s, you already know this feeling. Not a bad haircut exactly, just one that quietly stopped matching the face wearing it. And you kept it because changing felt riskier than staying. The fix is a shoulder-grazing shag, choppy layers throughout with the heaviest texture concentrated around the crown and temples. Unlike the lob, which is about clean, smooth movement, the shag is intentionally a little undone, a little textured, almost like it was styled by running your fingers through it rather than a flat iron. Ask your stylist for heavy texturizing, through the crown specifically, because that's where the shag earns its lift, and it's the part most stylists skip if you don't ask directly. The reason this works on so many face shapes is the layering pattern itself. Choppy layers concentrated near the crown create height and volume right at the top of your head, which elongates the face slightly and balances out any width that's developed along the jaw or cheeks over time. It's a styling trick borrowed straight from how shorter women create the illusion of height, just applied to softening a face instead. The first week with a real shag, people stop saying, "Did you do something different?" and start saying, "You look so awake," which tells you exactly where their eyes are landing now. Have your stylist texturize with a razor rather than thinning shears for the choppiest, most lived-in effect, and ask them to cut it slightly damp, so they can see exactly how the layers will fall once it dries with your natural texture. The swap here is easy to picture. Before, a stiff, unchanged shape that's held the same outline for years with no real layering. After, a shoulder-grazing shag with choppy, crown-concentrated texture that lifts and reshapes the whole silhouette. There's one more cut left, and it's the one I get asked about more than any other, because it's the cut for women who genuinely cannot commit to short hair under any circumstances. Part 5. The long bob with underlayer volume. Here's the truth nobody mentions about wanting to keep your hair long after 50. You can absolutely keep it long. The actual mistake is never in the length itself. It's in leaving the underneath layers completely untouched while only trimming the ends, which leaves the bottom of your hair dense and heavy in a way that flattens everything from the cheekbones down. This is the one I hear most in the comments, women insisting they're not a short hair person, and they don't have to be. The problem was never length. It was a cut that never addressed what was happening underneath the surface layer. The fix is a long bob, somewhere around collarbone to a few inches below, with the underlayer specifically thinned and shaped to create internal volume rather than dense weight. Your stylist works on the layers you can't see from the outside, removing bulk from underneath while keeping the visible top layer fuller and smoother. Ask specifically for internal layering or underlayer texturizing, because a generic request for layers usually only addresses the surface and skips exactly the part causing the problem. What changes is the way the hair moves and sits against your face. Heavy, untouched hair sits like a single solid mass and pulls the eye down and outward along the jaw. Hair with proper underlayer volume moves as you turn your head, catches air and light differently with every motion, and visually narrows rather than widens the lower face. It's the difference between hair that looks like it's simply still attached and hair that looks like it was actually designed for the face wearing it. Women tell me this is the fix that finally made long hair feel like an asset again instead of something they were just keeping out of habit. Ask your stylist to show you the underlayer before you leave the salon, lifting the top section so you can actually see the internal shaping. If they can't show you visible texturizing underneath, the deeper layer work likely wasn't done. The swap to picture: before long, dense, untouched hair that hangs as one heavy mass. After a long bob with thinned, shaped underlayers that move freely and visually lighten the entire lower half of the face. 5 cuts. 5 completely different ways of solving the same underlying problem, which is hair that stopped working with your face somewhere along the way instead of for it. So now you've got 5 real options on the table. The layered lob, the curtain fringe, the textured pixie, the shoulder-grazing shag, and the long bob with underlayer volume. And every single one of them works by lifting attention upward instead of letting hair drag your face down. None of this requires anything drastic. It just requires the right ask at your next appointment. Out of these 5, which one matches what you're already working with right now? And which one have you been too nervous to actually ask for? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. Next week I'm breaking down the exact words to say to your stylist so you walk out with precisely the cut you asked for, not something close to it. Like this video, subscribe to Timeless Beauty, and I'll see you in the next one.